Hello and welcome to the introduction video for the new EOS RP. Yes, you did hear me correctly. I said RP. So we're going down a different convention with these cameras at the moment. So it's not going to be like our M series where we have M6, M5, M50 and things like that. And not like our other EOS cameras where we have 2000D, 4000D. We're going down a completely different tack. So this one is going to be called the RP. Obviously this will sit alongside the R that we have in our mirrorless lineup at the moment. So why are we using a letter? Well, it's actually something that we've done before. We've done it a number of times. Back in the 1960s we created cameras where we just use letters rather than numbers to help people to understand where they are in our lineup. So this might take a bit of getting used to, but we have done this before. So let me tell you a bit more about this camera. So first of all, where does it sit in our lineup? So it's a mirrorless camera, it's a full frame camera, but it will sit below the EOS R that we have in our lineup at the moment if you're looking at our mirrorless range. So you'll have the RP and then you'll step up to the EOS R. If we're talking about our traditional DSLRs, this camera will sit somewhere around the 6D Mark II level. Okay, so straight away you can see that we're aiming this at people who are stepping up into full frame. It's quite a simple camera in its layout and its functions and how that it works, so it won't be very intimidating for people who are coming straight into full frame photography. Maybe they haven't owned a camera before and they're coming straight into full frame. Or because we've made this very small and lightweight, it'd be a great way for people to step up from something like an 800D or an 80D into full frame photography. So we'll have quite a number of full frame cameras now. We'll have the 6D, we'll have the 5D Mark IV, we'll have the EOS R, and we'll have the EOS RP. And if you've got plenty of money, we've got the 1DX. Let's not forget that one as well. So we've got quite a lot of choice for people if they want to get into full frame photography. If you're not sure what full frame is, I'll cover this off in another video. It's quite an interesting thing. So let's have a look around the outside of this camera and let's talk about the features and functions. So the first thing you notice when you pick up this camera has got to be its size and its weight. It's an incredibly small camera. If I put it on the palm of my hand now, I've only got little hands, but I put it on the palm of my hand, you can see how small it is. I've put the 35mm lens on the front here. This is actually a really nice combination with this camera, but it really does go to show how small it is. The weight is one of the most amazing things. It's 485 grams, so it's very, very lightweight. That's with the battery and with the card. To put that into context, it weighs less than an 800D, which is a crop sensor camera, whereas this is full frame, we have to remember. So it's like a big sensor inside a very small lightweight camera. So one of the first things you notice when you look at the back of the RP is the lack of buttons. We've tried to keep this camera nice and simple, like I say, to make it non-threatening for people who are just starting out in this type of photography. Most of the controls are run from the touchscreen. So it's a 3-inch variable angle touchscreen. It's a million dots, so it's a screen we've seen before on many other of our cameras. It's a really nice screen. Journalists do feedback how nice this screen is. The other thing you'll notice there is the viewfinder on the top there. So the viewfinder is obviously a electronic viewfinder. You don't get traditional viewfinders on mirrorless cameras, so it's an electronic viewfinder. It's a 0.39 type, 2.36 million dots. So once again, we've seen this viewfinder before. We've seen it on other cameras. So we've got nice tried and tested functions and features on this camera. So if we look at the top plate there, it's a very traditional layout, something you've seen before on many of our other cameras. So on-off switch on the left-hand side there. In the middle there, you've got the control wheel, so it's come back. So we don't have this on the EOS R, but we've put it on the RP. It'll make it a lot easier for people stepping up from triple XDs like the 800D onto this camera. We have the main functions on there as you'd expect. So you have manual, aperture priority, program and this kind of thing, but we do have FV, which is the flexible value, which is something we debuted on the EOS R. If you're not sure what this is, have a look at the EOS R video. I go through that feature on detail in that video, but I think it's one of the most exciting things we launched for quite a while actually, because it is a great way to shoot the flexible value. So if you haven't tried it, give it a go. And then next to that you have a lock switch for this control wheel here, which is a beautiful position. It sits, when you hold the camera, it sits really nicely where your thumb is, to allow you to change things like shutter speeds and apertures and ISO and things like that. And in front of that you have another control wheel, so you can use this with your forefinger on here and your thumb here, and you can very quickly change settings if you're shooting in manual. You've got the manual function button there, and then there's a dedicated button for the for video shooting. So a very simple layout, very easy to use. So one of the nice things about the layout of an EOS camera is pretty much all of the buttons that you use are down the right hand side of the camera, which means that when you hold it in your hand, you can access most of the buttons using just your thumb. You haven't got to take your other hand off the lens to actually change any of the settings. The only button that's on the other side is the menu button, which when you're shooting, obviously you don't use that very often. But it's so nice to have all these buttons down one side. And if you look at them, once again, the layout very similar to other cameras that we have in our lineup, which will make it easy for training people and getting people up to speed on this camera. So if you have a look at the ports that you have on the side of the camera here, you have the remote socket there, you have microphone and headphone input, which is really nice for a camera at this level. You also have the HDMI socket and also the socket there to connect up to your computer, the USB socket. And what's great about the USB socket is it can be used for charging the camera as well as transferring information. So that is a great feature to have now these days. So the last thing on the outside of the camera before we start looking on the inside of the camera is the battery. Okay, I know strictly the battery is actually inside the camera, but it's a nice bridge between talking about the outside and talking about the inside. So the battery is an LPE17. This is a battery we've seen a number of times before on lots of different cameras, 800D, 77D, some of our mirrorless cameras take the LP17 as well. In this camera, you will get between 250 and 270 shots. That's CEPA testing. I mean, in the real world, you'll probably get a lot more than that, but obviously we have to go by the CEPA recommendation. So the sensor inside here is a 26.2 million pixel sensor. This is very, very similar to what we have in the 6D Mark II. So the image quality will be very similar, but we have tweaked it to make it work with mirrorless cameras, because obviously there's differences there. But as far as image quality is concerned, it'll be very similar to what you get from the 6D Mark II. This gives you an ISO up to 40,000, which you expand to 102,400. It has our latest Digic 8 processor inside there. Which gives you a number of really good features. One of the things that's really quite exciting, gives you an in-camera digital lighting optimizer, or DLO. If you want to know more about that, let me know in the comments section and I can shoot a video just about that. Digic 8 also gives you a dual sensing IS system, which uses information from the lens and from the sensor and from the processor, using gyros to really give you a reduction in your shake and to give you those sharper images. This camera doesn't have in-body image stabilization, but with this dual sensing IS, it gives you a very good steady image. You can shoot sports with this camera. It will shoot up to 5 frames a second. That's with the autofocus locked on the first frame. Or if you want continuous autofocus, it will shoot up to 4 frames a second. So not quite as fast as other cameras we have in our lineup. So this isn't really a sports animal, if you see what I mean. But you can use it for lots of different types of photography. So the RF also has silent shooting. It works in the same way as it does on the EOS R, in that it's a scene mode, but it does give you the ability to shoot without the camera making any noise whatsoever. So let's talk about the AF system inside here. So it's a dual pixel CMOS AF system. So it's our best live view AF system that we produce. It's not quite as sophisticated as the one that's inside the EOS R, but it's very, very close. So the coverage on this one is 88 by 100, whereas the EOS R is 100 by 100. So it doesn't cover quite the same amount of area. This means you have slightly less AF points. You have around, or you actually have 4,779 AF positions that you can choose. We're quoting this one as having the world's fastest AF speed as well, as 0.05 of a second. This is for full frame mirrorless cameras. There's lots of caveats on that, and you're welcome to have a look at those on some of the specification sheets for the EOS R. The AF system will go down to -5 EV as well, so we'll focus in pretty much complete darkness. Not quite as good as the EOS R, but very, very close. But one thing this does have that the EOS R doesn't have is it has eye tracking. So if you can lock onto the eye of your subject, then as your subject moves around, the camera's autofocus system will follow it. It doesn't mean it follows your eye while you're shooting, but it does mean it'll follow the subject's eye when you're shooting. So one of the key features on this camera, or any of our cameras for that matter, is the Wi-Fi. We are really well known for our Wi-Fi solution. When I talk to the journalists, they love our Wi-Fi because it's so simple to use, and it's also very easy to use the app, which is a really nice app. If you haven't used it, I'd recommend going and trying it. So there's loads of different things you can use when you're doing the Wi-Fi. So my fingers are quite cold, so it's not even recognizing them. So if we look at the Wi-Fi settings, you can send images to various different devices. So function here, so you can see you can send it to a smartphone, you can send it to a tablet if you want to, you can send it to send images to your computer, you send images to printers, or you can send images directly to the cloud. Which are great ways to actually share your images and use the camera. Now if I go back to the menu, let's see, if we go back to the menu, we've also got Bluetooth on here as well, so we've got a low energy Bluetooth solution, which is really good. That doesn't use anywhere near as much power as like the standard Wi-Fi. You can also wake up the camera, even if it's tucked away inside your bag. You can have a look at the images that are on there without getting the camera out, which is a great thing to be able to do again. We also have the automatic transfer on here. If I go back through the menu again, where's it gone now? If I go to Wi-Fi settings, you'll see here, auto send images to a computer or send to your smartphone after shot. This is something that we launched on the EOS R, and we've got it on a couple of our cameras now, and it's a really good solution where you can send images as soon as you've taken them directly to your smartphone or directly to your computer. And this is a great way of talking about, people say that we don't have dual card slot, but actually with this camera you can take a photo, then as soon as you've taken it, you can send the image directly to your smartphone as a backup, which even if you lose the camera or the camera breaks or whatever, you haven't lost that imagery. And I think that's a really clever way to do it. But obviously I can't really show it here. I've shown it on a different video. But another thing I really like about the Wi-Fi is being able to control the camera remotely. For me, I think that's the most exciting thing that you can do, to have the camera set up somewhere, then you can be a distance away from it and you can see what the camera's doing and take photos. So let's get on to the movie functionality on this camera. So you have full HD shooting, that's at 60p with dual pixel CMOS AF. This camera will shoot 4K as well. It's only at 25p, but you don't get dual pixel CMOS AF. If you want that, you need to look at the EOS R. It does have a microphone and headphone input, so this could be of interest to people who do vlogging and shooting like that, especially with the size and weight and the full frame sensor. If you are shooting the 4K, it is cropped again. The crop is the same as what you get on the EOS R, but if you're shooting full HD, you get the full width of the sensor is used, so you do get those that lovely shallow depth of field look. Do you know what? The more I shoot, the more I really like this camera. It's so small, so lightweight and so simple to use. It makes it a pleasure just to go out and shoot with, even if you are clambering through mud. Now, what this camera would be really good for, if you're really into portrait, landscape photography, if you like travel photography, I think this camera would really suit you really well because of its size and weight and its simplicity. You can just get those shots that you want. I don't think it would really excel in like a sports environment, or if you're into motor racing, if you're into pictures of aircraft and this kind of thing, it might not be so good because you might find it hard to track those fast moving subjects. But if you really like photography like this kind of thing, just going out into the woods and shooting, I think this is the camera for you. The lenses that we have on here, obviously I'm using the native 35mm. I'll tell you something I didn't say about this lens I really like as well. It's got that control ring on the end. So when you are using this camera, you've got the control buttons on the back, you've got this control here, and this control here, which means manual is very quick, even for moving your AF points, which I know is something that people say about on the original EOS R. You can use this for moving your AF points around, and then you can use this for doing your shutter speed or your aperture or exposure compensation. There's a lot of buttons and dials on here, even though it is still quite a simple camera. Now I just want to show you one more thing before I finish this video, and that is this. This is a little grip to go on the bottom. You know, I keep saying about how small and lightweight this camera is. Well, I've only got little hands, but if you've got big hands, you might find that your finger hangs off the bottom of the camera. So you've got this grip to go on the bottom. Now, what you do is you have to take the battery door off, and I've just done that there. And then this should clip straight onto the bottom of the camera like this. There you go. There you go. It's now on the bottom, so it's giving you just that little bit more depth to the grip, so you can hold on to it nice and firm. What I really like about this little grip is that you've still got the switch here, so you can still get at the battery. Even though it's got this little extension grip on the bottom, you can still get at the battery, and you've also got the tripod socket as well, which you don't have with a number of their competitors' products when they have the grip extension. So there you go. That's a quick look round of the new EOS RP. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section below, and if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. I do apologise if I'm slurring my words a bit, but it's actually 2 degrees out here. My feet are now frozen, I'm covered in mud, it's time to go home. Thank you for watching.